Good afternoon everyone, my name is Hassan Qadri. I'm a technical sales manager for Geographe. My world revolves around parts, toolings, coming up with innovative solutions, working with on-site teams. I work for Geographe, which has been in the mining industry manufacturing parts and tooling since the past 6 decades. Geographe does this by introducing lightweight tooling, lightweight parts, one-man lifts, ensuring the right manual handling is there at all times, and by eliminating hazards at bay. Through this, we prevent musculoskeletal injuries from happening. I'd like to introduce you now to Stephanie Clarke, the founder and director of Multicoached and the lead occupational therapist. She's going to talk today about how musculoskeletal injuries impact people at an emotional, psychological, physical level, and how these impacts aren't just restricted at an individual level, but rather impact families and peers and colleagues at the same time. Over to you, Steph.
Thanks, Hassan. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Steph. My world is bodies, brains, and daily life. I look at how people move, think, cope, and recover. I'm an occupational therapist. So yes, I care about posture, grip, force, repetition, fatigue, and safer task design. But we also look at what happens after an injury. Because an injury does not just affect a shoulder, a back, or a knee. It affects sleep, mood, confidence, identity, family routines, finances, parenting, relationships, and mental health. So today, Hassan and I are looking at the same issue but from 2 connected angles. Hassan's lens is how do we design the task and the equipment so the risk is reduced at the source. My lens is what happens to the whole person when the risk is not reduced early enough. And together, the message is simple. Prevention is not just about avoiding injury reports, it's about protecting people's ability to live, work, move, parent, connect, and keep participating in the lives that they have built outside the gate. Now, musculoskeletal injuries do not always happen in one dramatic moment. Sometimes they build slowly. A worker will kneel, reach, grip, twist, or lift, climb, push, and they push through fatigue as well. And that repeats years over years over years. And the body will adapt for a while, it will compensate, but it finds a way. And eventually the body starts keeping score. Okay, I would like to introduce you to today's most dangerous piece of equipment. So we know mining equipment can be dangerous, but would you believe that one of the most dangerous pieces of equipment for the body could be this? I introduce the humble toaster. Hands up who eats toast. Hands up who's ever leaned over awkwardly to grab a piece of toast because it didn't pop up properly. Hands up who has ever felt a random back, shoulder, or knee twinge and thought, oh, that's new. Yeah, thanks, Aaron. Okay, so the toast didn't actually cause the injury, but I once worked with a firefighter. Now, he was strong, he was capable, he was physically fit. Someone who'd carry heavy loads, heavy equipment, he'd climbed ladders, he'd moved under load, he worked in awkward positions, and he pushed his body through this for years. Then one day, he bent over to pick the toast out of the toaster, and his back went. Now, this wasn't during a rescue, carrying someone out of a burning building, not lifting a hose, but toast. Now, of course, toast wasn't actually the real reason for the injury, but the toast was the final straw. Now, his body had been quietly keeping the score for years. Now, that's actually a true story. Now, this is a case study about a miner called Mark. Now, Mark's in his early 40s. He's worked in mining for over 15 years. He's strong, he's capable, he's reliable, and known as the person who just gets on with the job. Now, part of his role involves changing heavy pins in large machinery. It's not glamorous work, it's repetitive, forceful, and awkward. And it often involves reaching, gripping, bracing, pulling, twisting, and working in poor positions around large equipment. He's done this task hundreds and hundreds of times. And because he's done it hundreds of times, everything he does starts to feel normal. Now, Mark does not have one dramatic moment or dramatic accident at first. There's no big fall, there's no crush injury, there's no emergency. Instead, he starts getting shoulder stiffness after shifts, then aching at night, then difficulty reaching overhead, and then pain putting on a t-shirt. He then starts avoiding certain movements without even realising it. But he keeps working because that is what many workers will do. He pushes through, he adapts, and he compensates. Then one day, during a routine pin change, his shoulder gives way. Now, the task didn't suddenly become really dangerous overnight. His body simply reached the point it could no longer absorb the repeated load. Now, this is where micro damage matters. So every time Mark reaches, he grips, he pulls, he twists or works under load, small amounts of stress will go through the muscles, the tendons, the joint structures, and the connective tissues around the shoulder. Now, on their own, these small stresses are very, very manageable. But when they happen repeatedly, under force, in awkward positions, without enough recovery, the shoulder's tolerance starts to reduce. Now, eventually the body doesn't fail because of one task. It fails because the same demands have been layered over and over again. Now, under an injury lens, microdamage means tiny repeated stress or strain to body tissues. This may not be obvious at first. It can affect muscles, tendons, ligaments, joints, discs, nerves, connective tissue. In a mining or manual work context, microdamage can happen when the body is repeatedly exposed to forceful pulling, heavy lifting, awkward postures, overhead work, repetitive gripping, vibration, twisting under load, and working while fatigued, with not enough recovery time in between tasks or shifts. So microdamage is small at first, and it replaces repeated strain on the body. Each strain may seem minor, but over time, if the body does not get enough recovery, the damage can build up and contribute to pain, weakness, inflammation, and ultimately injury. Now, every time Mark changed that pin, his shoulder absorbed the load. One pin change did not necessarily injure him, but repeated pin changes over years, especially with force, awkward positioning, and fatigue, may have created ongoing microdamage. Eventually, the tissue tolerance of his body dropped, and one normal work task became the moment his shoulder finally gave way. Microdamage is the body's quiet record of repeated stress and strain. Now, once Mark reports the injury, the visible workplace impacts begin. He might need time off work. He may move to restricted duties. He may no longer be able to safely complete heavy lifting, overhead work, or repetitive reaching, forceful pulling, pushing, use of vibrating tools, or the emergency physical tasks that you sometimes have to do. Now, for the company, this shows up as lost time. Modified duties, workers' compensation, replacement labour delays, and reduced productivity. But for Mark, it's much more personal. He's not just off a task, he feels like he's completely off his role. He's off the tools. Now, he's no longer the person everyone relies on in the same way. This is the part we often don't see on the spreadsheet. Mark goes home, but the injury comes with him. He can't sleep properly because his shoulder aches at night. He struggles to put on a shirt in the morning. He avoids lifting his children. He cannot do the heavier jobs around the house, and his partner or spouse picks up more of the load. He's tired, he's sore, he's frustrated, short-tempered, and grumpy. He's home more, but he doesn't feel useful, and that can be mentally brutal for someone who's used to being strong, capable, and active. So, what is the actual mental health cost? Mark starts worrying. Will his shoulder recover? Will he get back to his normal role? Will people think he's weak? Will he be seen as a liability? Will his income be affected? Will his superannuation be affected? Can he still provide for his family? Pain affects sleep. Poor sleep affects mood. Reduced movement affects confidence. Loss of work affects identity. And this is how a shoulder injury can become a mental health issue as well. Before the injury, Mark used sport and fitness to manage stress. Maybe he went to the gym, maybe he played footy, maybe he fished and camped, coached his kids' sports and helped mates on the weekend. After the injury, he has to start saying no. No to training, no to helping, no to social plans, no to things that make him feel like himself. And that loss matters because movement, sport, mateship, and routine are often part of how workers regulate stress and stay mentally healthy and well. Mark's injury isn't just a shoulder injury. It affects his sleep, his mood, his confidence, his parenting, his relationship, his income, his friendships, his identity, and his future work capacity. Now, that's the occupational therapy lens. We're not just asking what tissue was injured. We're asking, well, what can this person no longer do, and what does that mean for their life? So when the injury happens, it doesn't just stay at work, it follows the person home. It changes how they sleep, how they move, how they parent, how they feel about themselves, how much patience they have left at the end of the day, and it affects whether they can coach footy, mow the lawn, pick up their child, drive legally and comfortably, or even sit through dinner without pain. Now, this is why musculoskeletal injury is not just a safety statistic, it's a whole life disruption. We often talk about the financial cost of injury, and that does matter. A lost time, workers' compensation, reduced productivity, replacement labour, delays, retraining, modified duties, so on and so forth. But that is just one side of the story. For the worker, it's waking up sore, needing help with things they used to do without thinking, being home but not feeling useful, watching their partner carry more of the load, missing normal routines, feeling frustrated, flat, anxious or embarrassed, and maybe even guilty. Now, you can only watch so many daytime renovation shows before your mental health starts asking you serious questions. But underneath joking, being off work with an injury can be so isolating. People lose their structure, their routine, their social connection, their purpose, their confidence. These aren't just soft tissue injuries, these are recovery issues. Okay, so for those that don't know what an occupational therapist does, I will briefly explain. So occupations are tasks or anything meaningful to the individual, and we look at different types of life domains. Work and productive roles, usual duties, modified duties, return to work, confidence, endurance, safety, role identity. We look at self-care. Can they shower themselves? Can they dress themselves? Can they wash their hair? Can they shave? Toileting, eating, medication routines, managing pain or fatigue. Also domestic life. So we look at, can they do the cooking, cleaning, laundry, shopping, home maintenance, yard work, managing household responsibilities. We look at sleep and rest, sleep quality, pain at night, fatigue, recovery time, and the ability to restore energy. We look at family roles, parenting, being a partner, caring responsibilities, emotional availability, and household contribution. We look at social participation, friendships, mateship, community connection, events, hobbies, and avoiding being socially isolated. As humans, we need social interaction. We look at health management. So we look at appointments, rehab, exercise programs, injury management, medication, pacing, lifestyle changing, counselling. We look at leisure and we look at a lot of stuff. Now, as an OT working in vocational rehab, we would look at the following things. We look at the occupation or the task. So what does the job physically and cognitively require that worker to do? We look at the environment. So we look at the tools, we look at the access, the layout, the surfaces these workers are working on, time pressure, and we look at workplace culture. Then we look at the person. So we look at their physical capabilities, their strength, their pain, the fatigue levels, mental health, confidence, and their skill set. We look at their roles, so worker, parent, partner, mentor, teammate, provider, and community member. Now, an injury is not just a soft tissue or a bone injury, it's a function problem. And function is what people need to live their lives. Now, can everyone put up their dominant hand, please, in the air? I won't injure you again, it's fine. Not that I did it for the first time. What I want you to do is put your dominant hand onto your opposite shoulder. Now what I want you to do is, I'm going to walk you through what you may have potentially done this morning. So you probably got up, you probably got out of bed, probably used the toilet, you may have brushed your teeth before breakfast, That's up to you. You may have showered. You may have then gone, oh, I've got to be at the Perth Convention Centre. I need to use my phone. I need to see where I'm parking today because parking was hard. And then what you may have also done is got into the car, driven here. You've already got dressed. You've already got your shoes tied. You've got socks on. You've got all this stuff done. Now, how would you do that if you didn't have your dominant hand to do it? How many of those tasks would you need help with? Because I can guarantee it would be about 80%. So if you've ever had anyone help you shower or dress, just think about the dignity involved with that, or lack of. So I'm going to pass you back to Hassan to talk about solutions.
Thank you, Steph. I'd heard of hand on heart, but you can put your hands down now. It's all good, I'm not that strict. We're going to talk about bridging past and present. We're going to talk about my affiliation to mining in the past, of me handling high performance team, diverse people with diverse skill sets. How does it feel to come on the other side of the table, working for a company called Geographe? A little bit about Geographe and how they're impacting this space through high performance tooling, specialized tooling, lighter weight parts, and moving forward. MSIs are particularly important, as Steph mentioned. A lot of people do not realize the importance of them. And complacency plays a big role. We're going to touch on that moving forward as well. The reality on the ground, a little bit about me. I used to work for Fortescue and Rio Tinto as a project engineer, handling large-scale projects. Internal teams, contractors, team consisting of about 50 to 100 people. What shaped me to become a fierce safety advocate was that I saw people get hurt. Those instances, those incidents, they shaped me into understanding how pivotal and important safety was. I'm a new father as well, a young dad, so I do understand how important is it to go back home safe. Not for me maybe, but for my family, the people behind me who wait. Hence, it's very important again to understand that injuries, MSIs, they're not just restricted to one individual, but rather they impact the entire family. Geographe is an innovative company that has been in the industry, working closely with tier 1 miners and people on the floor themselves, the people exposed to these hazards. We help produce parts and tooling that change people's lives. We produce tooling and parts that keep you out of the line of fire. People do not even have to be in the footprint of the asset when operating them. These engineering controls are very important if you're doing this day in, day out. From a statistics standpoint, and I quote SafeWorks, 3.5% of injuries that happen on site every year are MSIs, Muscular Skeletal Injuries, which roughly translates to 497,300 personnel getting hurt. These injuries can be catastrophic, PFIs, potential fatal incidents, or SI, significant incidents. But let me tell you, 35%, which is a significant number, are big claims. Claims which can impact you long term. Imagine the use of sledgehammer, which seems like a really small thing, doesn't it? If you do it over the years, as Steph mentioned, repetition is key. If you do not realize the sheer brute force you're applying on an asset, on a part, day in, day out, it's leading to muscle degradation. So for a short term, it might just feel fine, but the long-term repercussions are beyond comprehension. They can lead to permanent damage. Steph also touched on one point which is very integral to mention at the moment, is a guy who could no longer be a fitter, who could no longer follow his passion, because the sheer reason was he was using sledgehammer for most of his life, which now meant he could no longer be on the tools because of the damage he faced. Who is Geographe? A 6-decade-old business, 60 years in the market, manufacturing parts, manufacturing tooling. The heart of Geographe is to introduce solutions to address hazards, eliminate hazards, the cascading effects of risks. So if you prevent incidents from happening is through hazard identification, elimination, and introducing the right controls. That is what Geographe does. What is the principle though? The principle is introducing lightweight parts. Imagine a 90-ton pin which you hold on the top of your head while you're working on a cherry picker on a haul truck. If it falls on your head, it can be catastrophic for you. But you don't realize because you're in the moment, you're just doing it. But that's what we're here for. We work with on-site teams to identify these problems and provide the right solutions. Why am I so excited? It's amazing working on the other side of the table. Previously, I was working for the tier ones. I had a small impact. I was fixated to a site or two. Now working for Geographe means I can have a global impact. I can influence more people. I love going to the Pilbara, to the Red Dirt, to the East, the goldfields, and talk about this because this matters. Going back home safe is important. Understanding risks is important. Getting them addressed is even more important. You can be a fitter, perhaps, with 25 years of experience in the industry, or someone new or green to mining, but incidents or accidents, they don't look at your experience, they just come for you. Maybe you were lucky that it didn't come for you for the 25 years that you worked in mining, but maybe someone else isn't. So anything can happen, but with the right engineered solutions, we can definitely change most of it. How can Geographe help? Specialized tooling, what is so special about it? The ball stud removal tool, the BSRT, we've sold 200 of these tools throughout the industry. They've taken out a normal maintenance regime from hours on a fleet or an asset to just minutes. Imagine the thousands of hours we've saved. Imagine the safer practices we've introduced. These engineered solutions mean you do not have to be in the line of fire. They're encapsulated. They take the risk out of the equation. Now this is impactful, isn't it? Geographe won an innovation award in 2021 for this BSRT ball stud removal tool. When I used to work for Fortescue, this was a big concern. I was concerned when my team dealt with steering componentry. Use of sledgehammers, exposure to heat, so many risks involved, sprains, strains, falls, whatnot. With this engineered solution, things have changed. When I joined Geographe, I was ecstatic because someone had actually brought this problem to them before me. Now it can be addressed. So thousands of hours saved, people do not have to be in the line of fire. That led to us to a solution, to a standardized solution. Now we knew what the process was. How can we further replicate it? That is why we came up with the BISPERT. 3 months into the market, I may have demoed it across 6 to 8 mine sites. Every time I go there, it's a yes from the company. They want this. Why? Because it stops people being exposed to the hazards at bay. Ergonomic design, one-man lift, engineered solution, you do not have to be in the line of fire. You're outside the footprint of the vehicle. That's amazing. You do not have the risk attached to it anymore. As a smart person once said, the lesser time spent on maintenance, the higher and the safer the job is. The probability of safety exponentially increases. Collaboration in the higher purpose. Without you guys, without these tier ones, we can get nowhere. We want to innovate, but if you don't bring the query to us, how do we solve this? How do we solve this problem? So your participation, your collaboration, you coming to us, it's of the utmost importance. You willing to share. As you bring this query to us, now it has a global footprint. Now we can impact people all around the world in mining, and that is what we want to do. So thank you. Thank you so much to each one of you for being a part of a bigger change. I'll hand it over to you, Steph.
All right, hands up if you're responsible for safety on site. Anyone? Any takers? Okay. Hands up if you lead a crew or influence how work gets done. Thank you. Hands up if you have people doing repetitive, awkward, heavy tasks or work close to the line of fire. Now, hands up if you know someone who's worked through a back, shoulder, knee, elbow or wrist niggle. And keep your hand up if that niggle came back later. Now that is the pattern that we are trying to break. When we prevent one injury, we're not just protecting productivity. We may be protecting someone's ability to keep working, to keep parenting, to keep participating with their family, to stay connected to their crew, to maintain their confidence, to avoid being socially isolated, and to avoid the mental health spiral that can come with pain, frustration, and the loss of routine all collide. Now, as people get older, injuries take longer to recover from. They interact with existing wear and tear, stress, sleep, and fatigue. So, prevention becomes even more important. When we talk about engineered solutions, safer tools, and better work design, it's not really just about avoiding paperwork or reducing compensation claims. It's about keeping people physically capable, mentally well, socially connected, and able to participate in their lives once they leave the site gate. Because no one wants to be that person that cooks some toast and finally their back goes. And no family wants to watch someone they love from being strong, capable, engaged to sore, frustrated, isolated, and stuck at home, wondering where they fit in their own life. Look, the toast didn't break that firefighter's back, but the years before did. Now, Mark's shoulder didn't give away because of one pin change. It gave way because years of repeated force, awkward positioning, fatigue, poor recovery, and it had all been building in the background, slowly and quietly keeping score. So this is why prevention matters, not just because injuries cost companies a lot of money, because they do, but because injuries cost people far more than just money. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for attending. Really appreciate it. If you have any Q&As, we're open to take questions. If you want to visit our stall at the end of the day, we're going to be here and Steph's going to be there for the next hour. So thank you.